The massive Imperial diplomatic vessel hung in Earth's orbit like a gleaming dagger. Its sleek design had not changed for 3,000 years. Inside the United Nations headquarters, Admiral Park watched the holographic display with anger he tried to hide. 3,000 years is part of their precious galactic empire. And they still treat us like children, he muttered to his aide. Engineer Kim Ju-woo stood quietly beside him. Her eyes were fixed on the Imperial ship's plans moving across her tablet. Every curve and part followed the exact rules set by Imperial Regulation 7829D. Approved spacecraft design parameters. The Millennial Technology Showcase invitation arrived, said Admiral Park. A courtesy invitation, of course. They don't actually expect Earth to present anything worth seeing. Ju-woo had been with Earth Defense for 15 years. She was known for her brilliant mind and for questioning things others took for granted. The Empire's unchanging ship designs had always bothered her. "Sir, may I speak freely?" she asked. Admiral Park nodded. He respected Ju-woo's insights, even when they challenged his thinking. "I've been digging through our oldest archives," she said. "The pre-contact records from before the Empire found us. Our ancestors had incredible ideas for spacecraft that never got built. And the Empire declared those designs dangerously inefficient centuries ago," Park replied, his voice tired. Ju-woo glanced around to make sure no Imperial observers were nearby. But what if they were wrong? What if they deliberately suppressed innovation? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've run the simulations. Our ancestors were onto something revolutionary." Admiral Park raised an eyebrow. "Careful, engineer. That kind of talk can get you noticed by Imperial security." "Please, Admiral, just look at these results." She handed him her tablet. It showed performance figures that seemed impossible. Ships using less fuel, but moving faster. Hulls that could withstand forces that would crush Imperial vessels. "These can't be right," Park said. "They are. I checked everything 3 times. Ju-woo insisted. "The Empire's ship designs have stayed the same for 3,000 years, supposedly because they're perfect. But they're not. They're just safe, predictable, controlled." Park handed back the tablet. "Even if you're right, what can we do? The Empire controls all shipyards, all resources, all trade routes." Ju-woo smiled. "Not all, sir. Earth still has some independence. We have our old lunar mining facilities. The Mars colony has manufacturing capacity the Empire largely ignores. And most importantly, we have these old designs they've forgotten about. You want to build a ship against Imperial regulations. Not against them, exactly. There are loopholes. If we use their standard outer hull configuration, but modify what's inside." Ju-woo's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The showcase is in 6 months. What if Earth actually had something to show?" Admiral Park looked at the Imperial ship hanging in orbit. For 3,000 years, humanity had been a minor part of the Empire, allowed a few nearby colonies, given the least important tasks, treated as barely worth noticing. "The Empire would never approve such a project," he said. "They don't need to know until it's done," Ju-woo countered. "We present it as a surprise at the showcase. By then, it will be too late for them to stop us." Admiral Park was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to face Ju-woo directly. "You realize what you're suggesting could endanger Earth's standing in the Empire. They could cut off our trade rights, our colony access. Or they could finally see that humans have value beyond being their servants." Ju-woo said, "Sir, for 3,000 years, we've followed their rules. Where has it gotten us? We're still treated as newcomers, as children who need guidance." The Admiral looked back at the hologram. The Imperial ship's design was beautiful in its way. Perfectly balanced. Completely predictable. "What would you need?" he asked finally. Ju-woo tried to hide her surprise. "A small team. Access to the old archives. Use of the abandoned shipyard in the lunar south crater. And your protection if questions are asked. And secrecy. Complete secrecy. Park added. If the Imperial observers get even a hint of this. They won't, Ju promised. Show me these designs. The complete plans. If I'm going to risk my career and possibly Earth's future, I want to know exactly what I'm supporting. Ju's fingers flew across her tablet. Soon, the holographic display changed from showing the Imperial vessel to something very different. While the Empire's ships were all smooth curves and predictable geometry, this design had angles and sections that seemed almost randomly arranged. It looks wrong, Park said. Because we've been taught that the Empire's way is the only way, Ju explained. This design uses principles the Empire abandoned or never discovered. Variable geometry, adaptive propulsion, energy systems that work with space instead of against it. As she spoke, the hologram began to move, showing how the strange ship would function. Parts shifted and changed. Energy flowed in patterns Park had never seen before. Can we really build this? He asked, his voice quiet with wonder. Ju nodded. We can. And we must. The showcase is our chance to show the Empire that humanity has more to offer than obedience. Admiral Park took a deep breath. Very well, Engineer Kim. You have my authorization. But remember, if this fails, it's not just your career at stake. It's Earth's future. It won't fail, sir, Ju said with certainty. 3,000 years is long enough to be ignored. As they looked at the strange, beautiful ship design hovering before them, neither noticed the small Imperial drone that had paused near the ceiling, its recording sensors capturing every word. The underground facility beneath Olympus Mons buzzed with activity. Red dust occasionally fell from the ceiling as drilling machines worked elsewhere in the Martian mountain. This place had once been a mining operation, abandoned 50 years ago when the Empire decided Mars wasn't worth the effort. Now it served a new purpose. Ju had assembled a team of Earth's brightest engineers, Li, Han, Choi, and Kang, all working in secret to bring the forbidden designs to life. They had been here for 3 months, working day and night. Pass me that flux regulator, Han called out, his hand extended from beneath a console. Kang tossed him the tool, which Han caught without looking. The team had become like a single organism, each person knowing what the others needed before they asked. Choi stood before the main control panel, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Numbers and diagrams flowed around her like water. The gravitic displacement system is stabilizing, she announced, her voice tight with excitement. The holographic projections showed energy flowing through pathways that no Imperial engineer would recognize. That's impossible, Li whispered, watching the readings climb. According to Imperial science, those numbers should collapse the system. Imperial science, Kang scoffed. 3,000 years without a significant change. That's not science, that's religion. Ju smiled as she watched her team work. They were the best Earth had to offer, each one brilliant in their own way. Li was a genius with materials, creating alloys the Empire had never imagined. Han could make any system work, even when the math said it shouldn't. Choi understood energy flows like no one else, and Kang could build anything, his hands seemingly able to shape metal by will alone. A signal light flashed on the wall. Visitors were coming. Places, everyone, Ju called out. And remember, basic explanations only. The heavy blast doors slid open. President Song entered, followed by 3 government officials. Their faces showed a mixture of curiosity and fear. Welcome to Project Phoenix, Ju said, bowing slightly. We appreciate you taking the risk to come here. President Song nodded stiffly. He was a cautious man who had risen to power by never challenging the Empire. Admiral Park speaks highly of your work, Engineer Kim. But I need to understand what I'm risking Earth's standing for. Of course, Mr. President. Let me show you. Ju led the group through the facility, explaining as they walked. The Empire has maintained the same ship configurations for thousands of years. They claim it's for safety and standardization, but our designs are more efficient by every measure. How much more efficient? asked one of the officials, a woman with skeptical eyes. 300% in power generation, 400% in thrust-to-mass ratio, 200% in structural integrity, Ju replied calmly. And those are conservative estimates. President Song looked troubled. If what you say is true, why would the Empire enforce inferior designs? Control, Han said bluntly, looking up from his work. If everyone builds the same ships, no one has an advantage. Han, Ju warned. Then she turned back to the president. We believe the standardization began as a safety measure after some ancient conflict, but over time, it became tradition, unquestioned. President Song frowned. If the Empire discovers this project before the showcase, they could revoke our colonial rights. Maybe worse. That's why we've been careful, Ju assured him. Our facility is shielded from Imperial scans. Our supply requisitions look normal. Even the power usage is disguised as mining operations. They reached a large viewing platform. Ju pressed a button, and lights came on below them, revealing a massive chamber. This is what you came to see, she said. The officials gasped. Below them sat a spacecraft. At first glance, it appeared to be a standard Imperial cargo hauler, the kind that moved goods between Earth and Mars. Its outer hull matched Imperial specifications exactly. But as they watched, panels slid open, revealing systems unlike anything in the Imperial fleet. From the outside, it looks perfectly normal, Ju explained. It would pass any Imperial inspection. But beneath that conventional exterior lie systems that will shock the galactic community. It's beautiful, whispered one of the officials, a man who had once been an engineer himself before entering government. Kang came to stand beside them. The outer hull is real Imperial plate. We salvaged it from decommissioned ships. But underneath, he smiled proudly. Underneath is pure human innovation. President Song gripped the railing tightly. What happens when the Empire sees what you've done? They'll be angry at first, Ju admitted. They might threaten sanctions, but once they see how well it performs, they'll have no choice but to acknowledge our achievement. You sound very confident, the president said. I am, Ju replied. For 3,000 years, humanity has tried to earn respect by following rules. It hasn't worked. Now we'll earn respect by showing what we can really do. Choi called out from below, initiating test sequence alpha. The ship began to hum. A soft blue glow appeared around its hull, an energy field that no Imperial vessel could generate. Is it supposed to do that? President Song asked nervously. Yes, Ju said with pride. That's our adaptive shield matrix. It's 5 times stronger than Imperial shields while using half the power. The officials watched in amazement as the ship lifted slightly off its moorings, floating without any visible propulsion. We've named it Phoenix, Ju said, her eyes fixed on the vessel. And it's going to change everything. President Song was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, how soon until it's ready for the showcase? 2 months, Ju replied. We need to run more tests, make some final adjustments. The president nodded slowly. Then you have 2 months. No more. After that, either this Phoenix flies and changes our standing in the Empire, or he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. As the officials left, the team gathered around Ju. He's right to be worried, Lee said. If this fails. It won't fail, Ju interrupted. 3,000 years, we've played by their rules. Now we play by ours. They looked down at the Phoenix, hovering silently in its chamber. 3,000 years of conformity were about to end. The Grand Imperial Hall on Centaur Prime was huge. 500 alien species had gathered for the Millennial Technology Showcase. The room sparkled with floating lights and shining metals. Massive view screens showed the ships docked outside. Earth's delegation stood nervously at the back. They wore simple blue uniforms that looked plain next to the fancy clothes of other species. Admiral Park kept checking his watch. President Song stared straight ahead, his face showing no emotion. Ju felt her heart beating fast. "I still think this is a mistake," whispered Lee, one of her team members. "Too late now," Ju whispered back. The Zentari, tall blue aliens with 4 arms, were showing their new ship design. It looked almost exactly like their old design. The only difference was a slightly more efficient fuel system. The Imperial judges nodded with approval. "Next, the Vox Collective presents their innovation," announced the event host, a thin alien with golden skin. The Vox, a hive mind species of insect-like creatures, displayed a military vessel with improved armor. Again, it followed all Imperial design rules. Again, the judges looked pleased. This was how it had been all day, species after species showing tiny improvements to approved designs. Nothing truly new. Nothing surprising. "I'm beginning to understand," Ju said quietly to Admiral Park. "The Empire doesn't want innovation. They want obedience dressed up as progress." Park nodded. "That's how they've kept control for thousands of years." After 4 more presentations, the host announced, "Next, we have Earth." He sounded surprised, as if he hadn't expected humans to present anything. A few aliens laughed. Earth was known for its simple colony ships and basic mining vessels. Nobody expected anything interesting. Ju stepped forward, her legs feeling weak. She had practiced her speech 100 times, but now her mind went blank. She looked out at the sea of alien faces and took a deep breath. "The Phoenix represents humanity's contribution to Imperial technology," she announced, her voice stronger than she felt. She pressed a button on the small remote control in her hand. On the main view screen, everyone could see the Phoenix in its display dock. It looked like a normal cargo ship, the kind humans used to move food and supplies between their few colonies. Nothing special. But then it began to change. Panels shifted, revealing systems unlike anything seen in millennia. The outer hull, the part that had made it look like a standard Imperial design, folded away in sections. Underneath was something new, something different. A gasp went through the crowd. The energy readings on the display screens jumped higher and higher. The power signature reached levels thought impossible under current Imperial science. "What is happening?" asked a judge, standing up in alarm. "The Phoenix is showing its true form," Ju answered calmly. The ship now looked nothing like Imperial designs. It had angles where there should be curves. Its propulsion system glowed with strange blue light. Its hull seemed to shift and move like something alive. "This is outrageous," shouted High Engineer Rune of the Imperial Corps, his green skin turning almost black with anger. "These designs violate every principle of our sacred technological tradition." "Sacred?" Ju asked. "Or just old?" The crowd was in chaos now. Some aliens were shouting in anger. Others were moving closer to the screens, their eyes wide with interest. A few were already making notes, studying the Phoenix's strange design. Silence. The voice cut through the noise like a knife. Everyone turned. The Grand Architect Bion had risen from his seat. He was the oldest living being in the Empire, over 900 years old. His species lived longer than most, and he had spent centuries as the Empire's top engineer. His word was law in matters of technology. He looked like a frail old man, with thin white hair and pale blue skin that had faded with age. But his eyes were sharp as they fixed on Ju. "Human," he said, his voice surprisingly strong. "Your species has been part of the Empire for 3,000 years. In all that time, you have followed our ways. Why do you now bring this aberration before us?" Ju swallowed hard. Everything depended on her answer. "Because following hasn't gotten us anywhere," she said. "For 3,000 years, we've built ships your way. We've followed your rules. And still, we're treated as children. The Phoenix shows what humans can really do." "What you've done is dangerous," Bion said. "Our designs have kept peace for millennia. Your ship breaks every rule we live by." "Rules should exist for a reason," Ju replied. "If the reason is gone, Why keep the rule? Bayan's eyes narrowed. You question the wisdom of the Empire. I question wisdom that never changes, Ju said. True wisdom grows. It adapts. The old alien stared at her for a long moment. The room was completely silent. Then Bayan pointed a long, thin finger at the phoenix on the screen. That ship should not exist, he said. By all our science, it should not function. But it does, Ju said. We've tested it. It works better than any Imperial vessel of similar size. Impossible, Ryun shouted. She's lying. There is one way to know, Bayan said. I will inspect this abomination myself. A shock ran through the crowd. The Grand Architect never left the Imperial capital. He never personally inspected new designs. It was unheard of. The Phoenix awaits your inspection, Grand Architect, Ju said, bowing slightly. Not just inspection, Bayan said. I will test it. If it fails, humanity will face consequences for this disrespect. And if it succeeds, Admiral Park asked, stepping forward to stand beside Ju. The old alien's lips curved in what might have been a smile. If it succeeds, then perhaps the Empire has been asleep for too long. As the Grand Architect made his way slowly to the exit, followed by his assistants, the room exploded with noise again. Arguments broke out between species. Some demanded the humans be punished immediately. Others wanted to see the strange ship in action. What have we done? President Song whispered, coming to stand by Ju. What we had to, she answered. For 3,000 years, we've been followers. Now it's time to lead. Outside, through the massive windows of the Grand Hall, they could see the Phoenix waiting in its dock. No longer disguised, it shone with a light of its own. Different, unique, human. 3 days after the showcase, the Galactic Council called for a special hearing. The news had spread across the Empire. A small, unimportant species had challenged 3,000 years of tradition. Everyone wanted to see what would happen. The council chamber was a massive room with a high dome. Thousands of representatives from all Imperial worlds sat in rising circles around a central floor. Voices echoed off the walls as everyone talked at once. The sound was like waves crashing on a shore. Ju stood alone in the center of the floor. She wore her simple blue Earth uniform. Around her neck hung a small pendant her mother had given her years ago. She touched it now for luck. Silence, called the council speaker, a tall alien with silver skin. The room gradually became quiet. The speaker looked down at Ju with cold eyes. Engineer Kim stands accused of technological heresy, the speaker said, his voice booming through the chamber. The crime of developing technology outside approved Imperial parameters. Ju's heart raced, but she kept her face calm. She had expected this. I request to speak in my defense, she said. The speaker nodded. Proceed. Ju looked around the room. Thousands of eyes watched her, some with anger, some with interest, some with fear. I have violated no law, only convention, she said clearly. Our designs are safe, efficient, and superior to Imperial standards. There is no law that says we must follow outdated standards if we can create better ones. Better. High Engineer Ryun shouted from his seat. Your ship is an abomination. It defies all established principles. It defies your principles, Ju countered. But it works. It works better than anything the Empire has built in 3,000 years. Whispers ran through the crowd. This human was either very brave or very foolish. The Grand Architect Bayan entered the chamber slowly, walking with a cane. Everyone fell silent as he made his way to the central floor. He had spent 3 days examining the Phoenix. Grand Architect, the speaker said respectfully, what is your judgment of this human vessel? Bayan looked tired. His face showed he had not slept much. These humans have employed principles abandoned since the Fracture Wars, he admitted, his voice soft but clear. But the real question is, why were those principles abandoned? He turned to the huge screens on the wall. Display Imperial Archive File G7829, Security Level Alpha. There was a moment of confusion. Then a very old document appeared on the screens. It was dated nearly 4,000 years ago. This is the original order establishing our current ship design regulations, Bayan explained. I had to use my highest clearance to access it. Most of you have never seen it. Ju stared at the ancient text. It was written in old imperial script, but she could understand most of it. After the fracture wars tore the early empire apart, Bayan continued, the council decided that technological competition between species was too dangerous. They established rigid design standards not based on what was best, but on what was controllable. A shock ran through the room. Many representatives stood up, shouting questions or denials. Is this true? Asked a young representative from a newly admitted world. It is, Bayan said simply. I have believed all my life that our designs were perfect because they were best. Now I learn they were chosen because they were safe for the Empire, safe for control. High Engineer Ryung jumped to his feet. This human ship must be destroyed. It threatens everything we've built. Does it? Asked Representative Moon of Earth, rising from his seat. Or does it simply show that we've been standing still while pretending to move forward? Moon was older than Ju, with gray in his hair. He had spent his career trying to improve Earth's standing through proper channels. Now he spoke with new fire. We propose a trial by demonstration, he suggested. Let our Phoenix compete against your finest vessels in tasks of speed, efficiency, and safety. Let the truth be seen by all. The chamber erupted in debate. The oldest species in the Empire, the founders who had first established the design rules, demanded immediate punishment. They wanted the Phoenix destroyed and Earth's colonial rights revoked. Humans have always been trouble, said the Zentari representative. They asked too many questions. But several younger civilizations voiced support. If their design works better, why shouldn't we all benefit? Asked the representative from Proxima, a world that had joined the Empire only 500 years ago. Are we so afraid of change that we punish innovation? Asked another. The debate raged for hours. Ju stood in the center, feeling the weight of so many eyes upon her. Finally, the speaker called for order. The council will vote, he announced. One by one, representatives cast their votes. The tally appeared on the main screen. It was close, very close. By a margin of 7 votes, the speaker finally said, the council has decided. The human ship will be tested against our finest vessels. If it fails, Earth will face sanctions for its disobedience. If it succeeds, he paused. If it succeeds, we will need to reconsider many things. A mix of cheers and angry shouts filled the room. The speaker banged his staff for quiet. The tests will begin tomorrow at first light, he declared. Engineer Kim, your Phoenix will face 3 challenges: speed, efficiency, and safety. You may select a crew of your choosing. Ju bowed slightly. Thank you, Speaker. As the chamber began to empty, Grand Architect Bion approached her. You have shaken the foundations of an empire that has stood for 5,000 years, he said quietly. Do you understand what you've done? I've shown that humanity has value beyond obedience, Ju replied. The old alien studied her face. Perhaps, or perhaps you've started something that cannot be controlled. Not all things should be controlled, Ju said. Bion's ancient eyes held hers. I was once young, like you. I also questioned, but I learned that stability has value. So does growth, Ju countered. A small smile touched the old alien's lips. Tomorrow we will see which the Empire values more. As Bion walked away, Admiral Park and the rest of Earth's delegation surrounded Ju. Can the Phoenix win these tests? Park asked urgently. Ju thought of all the simulations they had run, all the tests back on Mars. The Phoenix was faster, more efficient, and safer than any Imperial vessel. Yes, she said, but winning isn't enough. We need to show them why our way is better. We need to make them see what 3,000 years of standing still has cost them. Bark nodded. Then let's make them see. The morning of the trials dawned clear on Centauri Prime. 3 Imperial ships waited on the testing grounds, the best the Empire had to offer. They shone in the sunlight, their perfect curves exactly as they had been for 3,000 years. The Phoenix looked strange beside them. Its angles and shifting panels seemed wrong to eyes used to Imperial designs. Some in the crowd laughed when they saw it. "That ugly thing is supposed to be our ships," someone said loudly. Jiwoo ignored them as she checked the Phoenix one last time. Her team stood with her, Li, Han, Choi, and Kang. They had worked so hard for this moment. "First test, speed," announced the council speaker. "Ships will race through the marked course." The course was simple, straight for 10 kilometers, then around a large space station, and back. The Imperial ships took their positions. The Phoenix joined them. "Begin," called the speaker. The Imperial ships shot forward using their standard drives. The Phoenix seemed to hang still for a moment. Then suddenly it was moving, faster than seemed possible. It reached the station well before the others, turned sharply, and finished the race as the Imperial ships were still making their turns. Silence fell over the crowd. The time display showed the Phoenix had completed the course in less than half the time of the fastest Imperial vessel. "It must be unsafe at that speed," someone shouted. "Second test, efficiency," the speaker called. This test measured how much energy each ship used while performing standard tasks. The results appeared on large screens for all to see. The Phoenix's unconventional gravitic systems used 30% less energy while delivering 50% more thrust. The crowd was quieter now. Fewer laughed. More leaned forward, watching closely. "Final test, safety," announced the speaker. This was the test the Imperial representatives were sure would prove them right. The ships would navigate an asteroid field while responding to simulated emergencies. The first Imperial ship made it through with minor damage. The second suffered more serious hits. The third performed best of all, emerging with only surface scratches. Then it was the Phoenix's turn. As it entered the asteroid field, the ship's hull began to change. Panels shifted to better angles. Its shields adapted to each new threat. When a simulated fire broke out in its engine room, automatic systems contained it in seconds. The Phoenix emerged from the asteroid field without a mark. The testing grounds were completely silent. The results were undeniable. In every challenge, from asteroid field navigation to emergency response scenarios, the Phoenix had outperformed the Empire's finest vessels. Its adaptive hull configuration allowed for specialized optimization that static Imperial designs couldn't match. Grand Architect Bayan stood slowly. His old eyes looked at the Phoenix with something like wonder. "For 3,000 years, we have built ships the same way," he addressed the council. "We believed our way was superior. Today, humanity has proven that progress comes from questioning tradition." The council chambers erupted in heated debate. Many species had grown comfortable with technological stagnation. Others saw opportunity in this disruption. "We cannot allow this," High Engineer Ryun shouted. "It would undo everything we've built." "What have we built?" asked a younger council member. "A galaxy where nothing changes, where we pretend to advance while standing still." For 3 days, the council debated. Jiwoo and her team waited, not knowing if they would return to Earth as heroes or prisoners. On the 4th day, they were called before the full council. "We have reached a decision," the speaker announced. "The human ship has proven superior in all tests. We cannot ignore this reality." Ryun and his supporters sat with angry faces. They had lost the vote. "The Council hereby establishes the Division of Alternative Technologies," the speaker continued. "Its purpose will be to explore new approaches to ship design and other technologies." Jiwoo felt her heart jump. This was more than they had hoped for. "Engineer Kim Jiwoo of Earth will serve as the division's first director," the speaker finished. She will report directly to Grand Architect Bian. The old alien nodded at her. There was respect in his eyes now, perhaps even a little admiration. Go forward, he told her quietly after the session ended. But go carefully. Change too fast, and you create fear. Change too slowly, and nothing really changes. I understand, Ju replied. Thank you for seeing the truth. Truth is what remains when belief falls away, Bian said with a small smile. 6 months later, Ju stood on the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Below her, the blue-green planet spun peacefully, but her eyes were on the ships preparing to depart. 20 vessels hovered near the station. Each looked different. Some had elements of the Phoenix's design. Others showed new innovations inspired by what humanity had done. There were ships from 15 different species, each with their own unique approach. The first Alternative Technologies Exploration Fleet, said Admiral Park, joining her at the viewport. They're heading to the outer systems to test their capabilities. They look beautiful, Ju said. All different, all unique. Some of the old Imperial leadership still isn't happy, Park noted. They say we've destabilized the Empire. Change always feels unstable at first, Ju replied. They'll adjust. They watched as the ships began to move away from the station, their varied drives creating a rainbow of colors against the black of space. We didn't just change how ships are built, Admiral Park said, his voice soft with wonder. We changed how the Empire thinks. Ju nodded, watching the vessels shimmer against the backdrop of stars. A technological renaissance had begun, and humanity had lit the spark. What's next for you? Park asked. The Alternative Technologies Division is growing. You could have your pick of projects. Ju smiled. I'm going back to the archives. Phoenix was just the beginning. Our ancestors had so many ideas that were set aside when the Empire arrived. I want to see what else we've forgotten. Always looking forward, Park said with a laugh. No, Ju corrected him. Sometimes you have to look back to find a way forward. As the fleet disappeared into the distance, heading for distant stars, Ju thought of the day 3,000 years ago, when humans first saw Imperial ships in Earth's sky. They had been in awe then, ready to follow. Now it was time to lead. The end.